ladies and gentlemen, it's lightning round. We made it. It's week 18. What is up, Fantasy Alarm YouTube? What is up, Better Sports Network? It's Kevin Tompkins. It's Britt Flinn. It's Andrew Cooper. Week 18. Fantasy championships have been put in the books. But if you're still playing for a championship, we're here for you. How you guys doing?
I'm great. We all got the hoodie memo today, apparently, which is great that we're on the same page with that. I'm really enjoying the fact that I went 3 of 3 in my championships. Just super stoked about that. And Sellers went 1 of 2. So it was a good Sunday for the Sellers household.
A lot of trophies in the house. Yeah, I went with since fantasy football is over, I went with the next best sport coming up. Kyle Busch.
Yeah, NASCAR, baby.
Rowdy, baby. I want to go fast. I watched Talladega Nights again the other day. That movie not only holds up, but might get better every time I watch it.
I had a tweet blow up like last week about, if you win, then how am I going to win? With DeAndre Swift and Jalen
I'm not
Hurts
even kidding.
Touchdown.
You sent that tweet on Christmas, and then me and my dad, I showed my dad that, and we were laughing about it, and I was like, why don't we just watch that movie tonight? And he was like, absolutely. So that was the inspiration for watching it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I beat John and Pemba in a fantasy championship. So even sweeter to win that one. I won a couple, but I'm in a lot of leagues. So it's not like, I won a good percentage of them, I feel, but I also lost in a lot of them too. That's how it goes. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I didn't have that great of luck with I didn't make it to a lot of finals, but the one thing I was kind of hanging my hat on was the best ball stuff, where I did make a lot of my money back. I was in a Palm final in week 17, got up to as high as 10th, and then we petered out quite a bit and landed in about 40th. So it is what it is, but overall, good season. Lots of fun was had, and I'm ready to do it all over again because best ball drafts, they'll be starting on some platforms in a couple weeks. So hold on to your butts. It's best ball season.
I want to talk to you guys about that because for Fantasy Alarm, with the members, we did a ton of best ball drafts. I compiled all the ones that I did. I wanted to check and see if there were any member ones that you guys did that I wasn't part of. So if you could take a look at that, I want to get something out to all the members. But I was part of 19 Fantasy Alarm best ball drafts this offseason. So we're going to post that. And what I love is that I went through and took all the first, second, third places. Virtually all the familiar names that were doing them at least came in the money in a couple of them. Obviously, you guys came in the money in a few of them, but like Obi-Wan Outlaw, Kismet 1, 2, Sellers had the highest score of anybody. Icy Through, Money Tastes Bad, Tool Time, Rock and Roll Ray, pretty much everybody. Hamburger, Fatty McFats. Yeah, Jack sends in his Kismet on there. He won too, which was second only to yours truly, so pretty cool. There was a lot of the familiar names, the people that, Voico, the people that pay the most attention. Obviously, they're going to win the most leagues. So congratulations to a lot of those guys. I'll get that posted, but a lot of fun. I cannot wait to get back into best ball, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just kind of want to break from it for a second.
You get a short break. Here's the thing. Here's what I figured out in the past is that people think the offseason is very long, but they don't realize that it's actually less than 30 days from the Super Bowl to the opening of free agency. Yep. So one year I was like, oh yeah, I'll write an article on every team. And I didn't, this is like 2 years ago. I didn't start until the Super Bowl. I was like, oh, I'll start when the season ends. There's not enough time for that. It was hot under the collar. Yeah. So I start a little bit earlier. I probably take about a week to kind of relax, digest. And then we're right back into Dynasty, right into best ball, right into free agency. And before you know it, it's Scott Fish Bowl and we're up and running again, baby. So no off season, baby. Jack's got it right. Dynasty season for a little, I don't know. What would you guys say? I feel like nowadays it's almost like it goes best ball season and then dynasty season and then best ball season again. No?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like best ball. Yeah, best ball, early best ball for the sickos, certainly. And then dynasty up until free agency a little bit after that. Then you get the combine season. You really get into dynasty. And then you get your rookie drafts after the NFL draft. Right. But yeah, it's like one big mishmash of
FFPC playoff challenge season coming up actually is the most recent one. Use promo code COOP at my FFPC, get $25 when you deposit 35 or more. that's a good one. I got an article coming out on that if it's not up already on some tricks over there. So let's go. Never ends.
Good stuff. And also, I wanted to throw this out too. The Lightning Round Best Ball Championship was decided this week. Congratulations. I haven't put a tweet out yet. I will be doing that today, but Cole Granger winning the prize this season. Our own Ryan Hallam finishing in fourth in that. He was in the lead for a lot of that. Did kind of give that up. Your boy Meat Mansion Coop won one of his divisions. So yeah.
Meat Mansion, attaboy. Meat Mansion is, dude, he is a anomaly, man. He either wins leagues or he comes in so very last, it's unfathomable. He is like, him and Sellers are the Ricky Bobbies of fantasy football, right? Like, you first or last, dude. Like, in one of them, I had people being like, dude, Meat Mansion has to set up. Like, in his fantasy championship, Meat Mansion not in the championship, but in his final week, he had like Nick Chubb in the lineup. That's how little attention he paid in one league. Then in one of our dynasty leagues, he was in the championship too. So shout out Meat Man, he can ball.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Speaking of sickos, obviously Underdog has a lot of best ball. I am currently sick right now, if you guys can hear it. But the only cure for me is more best ball. So go to Underdog Fantasy, use promo code ALARM, $100 deposit match. If you throw in $100, they'll send you $100 right back. You put in 50, they'll give you 50. It's a fantastic deal. Put that QR code right above Coop's face because he tried to claw machine us before the show went live.
I'll put y'all back in the claw machine, dude. Don't worry about that. Look out now.
Now I'm in the spot with the claw machine.
So are we. Yeah, it's a little tag team action here.
Hang on. Yep, we got him.
That's like the Linda Coop high five from the fans.
That's a way back. No, that was a seltzer pour. Yeah,
that's iconic. Yeah, that picture still makes the rounds.
Well, it's around out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? If you've got questions for week 18, certainly float them on in here. We're here. We'll answer them. But other than that, let's talk about, fantasy awards. Now, we don't have the pomp and circumstances here. Certainly the budget has not allowed it. It is what it is. We got to make do with what we got to make do with. But in terms of fantasy MVP, like there's a lot. I think I would say there's quite a few options. There's not like one super clear-cut option. You could certainly say Christian McCaffrey. You could say Tyreek Hill. Britt, who is your fantasy MVP for 2023 whole season?
My guy is going to be Raheem Mostert. And I know that both of y'all disagree on it a little bit, but as far as the consistency that you got out of Mostert from week to week, he was RB4 in points per game. He did have a few spike weeks. He led the entire NFL in touchdowns. He was a big part of why I got to championships in several of my leagues. And it was because he had that touchdown upside every single week. Your return on investment that you got, which I know is a hot topic going around Twitter right now, is return on investment, because we are in that point of the season. But drafting him where you did, he just returned so much value and gave you that flexibility when some of those top guys weren't performing. This guy was absolutely amazing. Helped get me to the finals. I still won the championship even though he was out. So that's why he's my MVP.
Yeah. So for me, I kind of treated it the way journalists would, where a lot of times they break up their awards. So like a couple times people will vote for like the MVP and the offensive player of the year, the same person. But for the most part, you kind of look around and say, okay, you know what? I think this guy deserves this award. I'll give another one to somebody else. So I do think Raheem Mostert deserves one of these awards. Spoiler, that award might be coming a little bit later, where my vote is for him. And the thing for me with Raheem Mostert and Christian McCaffrey for an MVP is that you got to win the championship, I feel, right? And those two in championship week, they didn't show up. So the guy for me that has the availability, like Britt said, I mean, Raheem Mostert, you didn't necessarily have to draft him. You could have added him off waivers, but this guy was available to everybody. Kyron Williams, right? Like he showed up championship week, 3 touchdowns, all on the way. Yep, Puka, Kyron, both available on waivers in a lot of leagues. He kind of checks all the boxes for me as somebody that, was available, crushed, and he crushed all the way through to the very end. I mean, Raheem Mostert was amazing for me in a lot of leagues, but he just wasn't there for me the last week of the season, which kind of hurt a little bit.
Yeah, Kyron's season was a season in 3 parts. He crushed in the beginning. He lost like 5 weeks due to injury. Then came back and crushed again. He had 5 top 10 weeks in his last 6 games. 3 touchdowns in the championship game. If you had him, you were pretty much on ice skates. Yeah, heading to the championship, heading to the trophy. Yeah, I mean, you can certainly make a case for guys like Mostert, Tyreek Hill. You and Jared did have CeeDee Lamb in there, which look, I did say 2024 I would be drafting CeeDee Lamb over Justin Jefferson, and that's just really because of the uncertainty at the quarterback position for the Vikings. But I think that certainly Kyron is my pick as well. I think he's the most deserving, but there's plenty of it's not a clear-cut thing as it was maybe last year or the year before, where you had to have one guy. You could have had any of these guys, but if you had Kyron, it was almost a lock.
Shout out to Sellers having Puka, Kieran, and CeeDee Lamb on his championship team.
Yeah, can we get a little banner up there, Adam Bernard, behind the glass, a little fantasy MVP, Kyron Williams. We get 2 out of 3 votes. I feel like we got to decide on one overall one for each award. No.
Sure, if you want to.
Kyron Williams, everybody.
We can leave it to the chat too. We can throw them up there and then
we could do that too.
Let the chat decide.
I mean, honestly, I probably think that it is Kieran, but it's just the fact that he missed that middle part for me of the season. That's what gave him a little bit of a ding for me. Because if you didn't have any depth, then you could have lost out on a couple games during that span, lost your bye week potentially, just things like that. And that's why it's Raheem Mostert for me. But I obviously get that there is a big case for Kieran after what he did in the championship game.
Yeah, and ESPN do release an article that shows the most rostered players going into championship week, and 1 and 2 were Christian McCaffrey, of course, and then Kyron Williams. So, if you survived, I think that's the guy for me. All right, what do we got next on the docket, Kev? What's the next award?
Next up, Fantasy Rookie of the Year. I think this was very hotly contested. You have so many options who could have led your teams to fantasy glory. Coop, why don't you start this one off?
I'll start this one because this is a guy near and dear to my heart, because so many people came out and said rookie tight ends can't be good, right? And I spent a lot of time researching it and writing an article specifically on this. If you Google Andrew Cooper Dynasty tight end concepts, I go through all the reasons why rookie tight ends have a very, very difficult time of being good. First of all, you need to be the best pass catching tight end on the team, which honestly doesn't happen that often. That's the first hurdle. But then you also need to be a top 2 target on the team. And it's just very rare that a team that needs help at wide receiver goes out and drafts a high-end pass-catching tight end. But this year we saw a couple teams do that. We saw the Bills do it. We saw the Lions do it. And we've seen in the past the Falcons do it, and Kyle Pitts at 1,000 yards. So very rarely does it happen, but the stars aligned this year. So Sam Laporta, for me, Dalton Kincaid had the opportunity. Luke Musgrave had the opportunity. They didn't quite get it done the way Sam Laporta did. This guy was an absolute star all year long, came through in fantasy playoffs last minute with the touchdown. So in championship week. So Sam Laporta, rookie of the year for me, and positional scarcity definitely factors in for my decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Laporta Potty Romper Stompers definitely agree with you. 2 out of 3 of my championship teams had Laporta on them. They were the Laporta Potty Romper Stompers, and Romper Stomp they did with Laporta. And that whole fantasy narrative of rookie tight ends can't be good. This guy wasn't only good, he was the best. Tight end 1 in PPR leagues. Tight end 1. Throw that narrative out the window, because nobody else can use that argument after the year that Laporta had. And it's only going to get better. What they're building with the Lions, all those young pieces, all that coaching talent that they have in there, this team is going to be good for a very long time. And Laporta is going to be a big, massive part of that team.
So let's say the line's good. Jared Goff, good. He's good enough, right? They've got 2 great running backs. They have a slot flanker in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have a field stretcher in Jamison Williams. They have a tight end in Sam Laporta. The one thing they need is a split end, like a big body split end. If you could have anybody go there, and obviously there's got to be a narrative of, they're available to some degree via trade or via free agency. You can't just say, oh yeah, we'll just put Jefferson there or Nico Collins there. Like, they have to be somewhat available. But who do you think would be a good fit for that? And I see Kev point is that the point that the T. Higgins, right?
100%.
Higgins, yeah. I'll throw an honorable. Higgins would be the best one. I'll throw an honorable mention. Mike Evans is not under contract. He's the guy that would fit that role too. But that's like the one piece they need to really be a powerhouse offense, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And they're so close. They're so close.
They're very close to it. That big body wide out. I mean, I wanted them to sign DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. And Hopkins, quietly gonna probably sneak his way to 1,000 yards. I mean, just the guys they have, Josh Reynolds, and it's just not cutting it.
Like, I think Hopkins still has it to a degree. Just that offensive environment's putrid.
Right.
Like, for him to almost do what he did, I still kind of believe in DeAndre Hopkins. So, I mean, given the advanced age, and trust me, I will knock a guy for being older than like 29, but I think he's still, say what we want to say about Michael Thomas. Maybe that didn't work out, Coop, this year. We were both kind of on him. You were on him. I was also on him. But, DeAndre Hopkins, I think, still has that ability to be a difference maker on that team. But if you guys are drafting it like a redraft, Laporte is the tight end one, right?
It has to be.
Yeah, got to be. Unless, again,
if Kelce didn't just crater, the offense doesn't help anything now. But
if they were to come out after the season, because this happens sometimes, like if they come out after the season and say like, oh, Kelce has a sports hernia and he had surgery on it, I think people might shift back the other way, or something like that. But clearly he's not right, because he should have gone off against the Bengals. This was a key matchup for him. And here's the thing is that he had the opportunity against the Bengals and then Chargers. Early this year against the Chargers, he had 12 catches for 179 and a touchdown. If he goes out this week, they have nothing to play for, so maybe he won't do anything. But like, if he goes out this week and looks terrible again, then maybe there is something wrong, Yeah,
yep.
It's Jason Witten in that uniform.
Yeah. The thing is, the era is different now. Like, this isn't NHL where Patrice Bergeron can play the whole year and then at the end of the year come out and say, oh, by the way, like, one of my ribs broke and was like in my lung, and I played the whole season. Like that happens all the time in hockey. But in the new era of the NFL, you can't do that, right? Like, if they come out and say Travis Kelce was hurt the whole time, they could get fined, right? They could get docked. So it's almost like you have to put him on the injury report, or you're not allowed to say anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that everybody's speculating over Travis Kelce, maybe that he's not right, that he's injured, rather than just attributing it to the fact that he is older and he has been playing in the league for a very long time.
He's going to be 35 next year.
Right. I think that does catch up to you at a point in time, and we've kind of seen it. And everybody wants to blame Taylor Swift and the distraction and blah, 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 blah. No, bullshit. This guy is 34 years old.
Yeah.
That's just what happens. That's the nature of athletes and sports. Sometimes you just lose a step, and I feel like that's where we are with Kelce.
The part that makes it tough in this instance is that, like, he had early, it's like he had games of 124, 179 yards. Within a calendar month, he had back-to-back games of 91, 81, 83. So it's like, it's hard for me to believe that, okay, on December 10th, he was capable of having the normal games that Travis Kelce has, but now on December 31st, he's washed. I feel like there has to be something there. Or maybe he is just, the season is long and he is nicked up and he is tired. And over the last month, he went from the guy we knew to a different guy. Maybe that could very well be the case, Britt, where it's just he's not built for the full season anymore. But I don't know. It's very strange. It's Taylor Swift's fault.
Yeah, obviously. Even like a guy like Tony Gonzalez, like that he played until he was 37 years old, still put up good seasons. I guess the expectation with Travis Kelce, draft in the first round, you're expecting 100, 1,007, 8 touchdowns. That's just not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
He still will have 1,000 yards, though. Even if they're going to rest the starters to some degree, he needs 16 yards. He's going to get those yards.
He's going to get those on 7 catches.
He'll go out and get those yards, I think. Yep.
That's pretty much what was he like 6 for 24 last week? And that's pretty much been his stat line was catch and fall, Travis Kelce.
I feel like we need to talk about Mahomes too, though. Like his accuracy and depth of target was just not there, and it hasn't been there. So I don't know if it's obviously Kelce's always kind of been like a catch and fall guy, this season at least. But Mahomes just throwing it to the line of scrimmage, like every single pass. Something has to be said about that too.
Right. And the crazy thing of the whole thing is how this team, even when they don't look their best, I mean, they're locked into the 3 seed. They can't lose it, right? Like they won the division and they're the 3 seed no matter what. So like, how bad can it be? Like
I think it's more that their defense has been coming up big than it is.
And Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened a couple years with Peyton Manning too, though, where so Peyton Manning, the team one year went 12-4 and he threw for like 49 touchdown passes and was just unbelievable. And then the following year, he only threw for like 20 something touchdown passes, but the team went 14-2. Because they had Edgerrin James. I'm talking about the Colts era. They had Edgerrin James. The defense was good. So, I mean, sometimes you don't need to be a superhero,
Yep. Definitely agree. So back to fantasy rookie of the year. I do have a different answer than Sam Laporta, though I think Sam Laporta is incredibly deserving. And I would say that's Puka Nacua. I would say that Puka Nacua just had it, and he was available to everybody. Just a mind-blowing start with 35 targets in his first 2 games. Working with Kupp, he was pretty much a wide receiver one when Cooper Kupp was kind of languishing a little bit. But look, 154 targets, 100 catches, 1,400 yards, with a game to go. I mean, dude's probably going to hit 160 targets, probably 105 catches. I mean, that's just monstrous stuff where I could see him being in the 1-2 turn next year. But yeah, Puka Nacua for me, I absolutely get the positional scarcity argument with Sam Laporta. But I think they're flip-flopped. You could make a case either way, but I'll go the other side and go into Puka Nacua.
Yeah, as we get into Dynasty season, folks are going to realize that Puka Nacua was a big hit for analytics Twitter, because when you go back and look at his college numbers, he quietly led all receivers that actually got drafted. There's some kind of cases that are outside, right? Guys that stayed or guys that just played in weird systems or were never going to be NFL players. But of all the players drafted, he was either led or was second in yards per route run in college, right? So like statistically speaking, NFL teams, if they care about that kind of stuff, this guy was hyper efficient at a school that wasn't, a huge.
That was the ding is that he did it at BYU.
At BYU,
y'all know why he's on my radar because he scored 3 touchdowns against Arkansas, and I knew that this kid was going to be.
And he transferred from Washington, correct? Didn't he transfer from Washington to BYU? So that was kind of a ding on him as well.
Right. So it's not even like it used to be where it was like you had to put up gaudy numbers or you had to play in the national championship. And now teams are looking around and kind of doing the math on some of these guys. Some of these players out of Michigan, when Michigan had the down years and Nico Collins didn't have good stats, but it was there behind the scenes, right? The size and the speed. And now we're seeing it. Or some of these receivers from Tennessee, right? Where Tennessee has just been kind of gross, but
Michigan State, Jaden Reed,
Josh Palmer, Jaden Reed. So it's kind of interesting. The analytics community kind of answering some of the questions on why you take shots on these guys.
Mm-hmm. I had a decent share of Puka in best ball, like much higher than I thought initially, but I did not think that he was going to be anywhere near this good. Obviously, Cooper Kupp being out the first few weeks helped that. But just the relationship that he built with Matt Stafford threw that whole narrative out the window of Stafford.
If they had announced that he was
literal Facebook.
Yeah, if they hadn't announced that he was having breakfast with Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford, he would have been like a 10th round pick. But they didn't until Jordan Rodriguez said that after the season started.
Right. We were fed all the wrong information when we should have been told this specific set. We shouldn't have been told that Stafford needed a Facebook to recognize the new players on the team, we should have been told that he was having breakfast with Puka.
Well, I think that's part of it, is that he has one of the easier names to remember. So Stafford couldn't remember most of the guys' names, but that one you remember right away. Yeah.
Imagine trying to memorize Skoranek. But I mean, that versus Puka.
Forget it, dude.
Easy game.
Yeah, Austin Trammell. Yeah, right, dude.
No.
Take a lap.
Take a lap. Bryson Hopkins. Get out of here.
Yeah, no way. So rookie of the year, though, by virtue of 2 out of 3, goes to Samuel Laporte.
Samuel
Laporte.
Yeah. Look, Laporte.
And as Mr. Scamper said in the chat at some point, you don't romper stomp in Laporte's.
You just don't do it, dude. Yeah, I saw Trey McBride in there. Trey McBride, he feels like a rookie, but actually second-year guy. And it's Trey McBride is such an interesting one because, like, people have totally forgotten that Zach Ertz, his first 3 out of 4 games, he had double-digit targets, right? Like, the signs were there for Trey McBride to just take over. So, interesting one. This is the first ever year there was not even just one viable handcuff tight end, but 2, right? Like, how often do we see the backup tight end step in when the starter gets hurt and become a viable fantasy option? We saw it twice this year.
Well, I mean, Tucker Kraft, you could kind of maybe throw
3 times this year then. 3 times. Tucker Kraft.
For another rookie, by the way.
Yeah.
I think Tucker Kraft is probably better long-term than Luke Musgrave, if you ask me, as far as a fantasy asset.
Right? Yeah. Tucker Kraft, Trey McBride, and Isaiah Likely, and also Kyle Pitts stepped up behind Jonnu Smith, the starter and the favored tight end there.
So disgusting. No, I think, though, when Toronto Dave was mentioning McBride, it was in response to, will Laporta be a tight end 1 overall? So I think he was making a case for McBride to be the tight end 1.
It depends how the offseason shakes out for sure, because we could see, like we said, like, what if the Lions do get T. Higgins? Now it doesn't mean Laporta's not viable, but now he's in the George Kittle chair where they have 2 good wide receivers, a good running back.
And they're going to have to be hyper efficient. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be super efficient. And where George Kittle runs a 4.52, Laporta is really, really good at breaking tackles and finding space. So I think he's going to be fine either way. That's why I love him in Dynasty. And say with Trey McBride, I don't think Marquise Brown's gone. You know what I mean? Like, even if they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., they would also have to sign another high-end option in free agency for McBride to go away. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yep.
I think that's why Zach Ertz said, I'm out of here, dude. This guy's he's taking over. I'm done. Is Zach Ertz going to sign anywhere for playoffs? Like, what's the deal?
I wouldn't be surprised if he honestly retires.
Yeah.
Like, it just wouldn't shock me. I think that he and Julie just had a baby. I mean, doing the dad thing.
They got the volleyball money. They're good.
Yeah, I think guys like that, like Ertz, in his mind, he's thinking, like, if I just keep pushing on, maybe I can make the Hall of Fame. If I just accumulate enough stats, maybe I can do it. But it's tough. It's really, when you look around at the tight ends that make the Hall of Fame, their numbers are pretty crazy. Like Antonio Gates has 100 touchdowns. You know, like these guys, Gronk has 100 touchdowns. Tony Gonzalez played forever. You know, Jason Witten, he'll make it, right? Yeah, Jason Witten's a Hall of Famer. And that's the thing, is that, like, if the bar of he should is Jason Witten, then Zach Ertz still would have to come back and play a few more, like a couple more years.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It's Sellers, by the way, putting up a very interesting question when it comes to rookie tight ends. Brock Bowers, of course, eligible for the draft, slated to be a pretty high pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Where does Bowers get drafted? How high do you think he goes in redraft? I mean, if he goes top 10, if he goes to like the Chargers.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw some info out there, and then you guys make the decision on that. I sent a tweet on this earlier today, which is, you look around this league and there are a lot of teams that need tight end, and some of them need it bad. Like the Dolphins offense needs a 2-way tight end, right? And when you look around at the free agent tight ends, there's not a lot of premium picks. The best free agent tight end that's in the league currently might be Hunter Henry. I'm not even kidding. He's probably the best 2-way tight end, which he could be on the Dolphins' radar. But you look around at some of these teams that don't have anything at tight end. The Chargers are going to need one. The Dolphins are going to need one.
Bengals.
The Bengals definitely need one. Depending on what goes on with sweet Jelani Woods, the Colts could be in the running for one. I think that Dalton Schultz is under contract, but he is, right? The 2-year deal or 1-year deal? Might have just been one.
I don't know.
So Schultz,
I
if he's
remember.
out there, he would definitely be a guy that you'd be looking at. But I mean, there's quite a few. The Rams with Higbee, who knows what's going to go on with him? The Seahawks, dude.
1 year on Schultz.
So he might be the best free agent tight end. But I could see them wrapping him up because they run the same offense that the Dolphins and the 49ers run, right? So there's a lot of teams out. The Panthers probably need a tight end. So there's a lot of teams out there that need a tight end. Brock Bowers could go fairly high. Where would you like to see him go?
I mean, I know the Chargers are rebuilding. I think that would be a fun spot, but
that'd be great. It'd be amazing.
I mean, it'd be great. You pair him with Justin Herbert. You're probably getting another decent season out of Keenan Allen. You're gonna have to find a wide receiver. Maybe if you don't bring back Mike Williams or whatever.
They signed Mike Williams to a massive contract.
Right.
He has to be back, yeah.
I mean, he has to be back, but I mean, what percentage are you getting out of him? So
I don't know.
And then QJ, that enigma.
Right.
That did not work out well at all. I think Miami would be fun, especially with how disappointing Jalen Waddle was. But I think that it would ding one of them, obviously, in that system. Because we've kind of seen the Dolphins be very, very good, but then we've seen them not score much of anything. And so I feel like it might be a trap if he goes to Miami.
Bowers would need, if he goes to Miami, he would need to be George Kittle like right away because they have Waddle and they have Tyreek Hill, so it's like for fantasy purposes, the best place for tight ends, for rookie tight ends are teams that have like nothing at wide. You know what I mean? Like that's the ideal spot. The worst spots for him would be the Falcons, obviously, right? Like
I swear to God, if Arthur Smith
Dude,
and Arthur's like, do that to Brock Bowers.
Denver would be terrible.
Denver would be tough. Although he could end up being like a Jimmy Graham, he uses the same word for the Joker role for all these guys, the guy playing at a position. He could be good.
He's already got one. It's Greg Dulcich. He just has played 2 games this year.
Yeah.
The real scary one would be Todd Monken trying to get his boy from college. And now he goes and he's in the tight end room with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler and that. I mean, that's it. I truly don't think that happens, but that would be an absolute nightmare. I don't think they're going to have a high enough pick to get him, to be honest. I think he's a first round pick, but that would be a nightmare. And the people always say the Bengals is the best landing spot, but if they keep T Higgins, I don't know if I like it that much. If T Higgins is gone, I love it though.
Yep, that's the big caveat.
Right, because Boyd is a free agent, I believe, as well. So they're going to have to certainly maneuver some money around because obviously they got Burrow locked up. They're going to have to make a lot of decisions revolving that offense and who they want to keep. And maybe they let somebody go and bring in a Bowers to maybe work off a Chase.
What if the best long-term value spot for him? Ready for this? Chiefs.
Yeah.
And you just go and learn from Travis Kelce and then take over from Travis Kelce. I mean, right away, it would obviously not be ideal, but like you're not going to learning from the best in the biz and then playing the second half of the career with Mahomes.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Sure, Taylor Swift's got some good friends there I can introduce it to.
No, she comes with the job, dude.
Well, no, they can go on a double date.
No. Once Kelce retires, it's they do a swap, right, Britt?
No.
No.
That's not how this works at all.
That's how love works. No. It's positional scarcity.
Oh my Lanta. All right, we're moving on from the tight end talk as much as I love it. The biggest first round bust. And since you both led off the previous 2 categories, I will lead this off. Austin Eckler. I'm sorry. I know Howard Bender pretty much got it right, but not in the way that I'm sure he described, because he said that was more of the Joe Lombardi leaving, the scheme way. It was just really Austin Eckler turning into pseudo dust, like less than 4 yards to carry, not very efficient. Doesn't help that the offensive line was not great for the Chargers. I mean, he never really carried a lot. I mean, he has how many targets? I don't even know. 44 receptions though on 400 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's finishing his RB 25 right now. Like, fantasy season ends, but it doesn't, week 18 obviously, but if you're going 1 through 17, he's outside the top 24. So I would say outside of injury, because I don't like to throw injuries in there because that maybe it's not really their fault. A guy that's he missed a couple games, but played most of the season and was just what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games of less than 10 fantasy points in his last 7 games. No, thank you. He was almost unstartable.
Yeah, brutal. What do you got, Britt?
Yeah, I'm going to throw injuries in there because I think injuries are a big part of what makes somebody
How
a bust.
dare you?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And that's why for me, it's Justin Jefferson, because not only was he injured for a big chunk of the middle part of the season, then his quarterback came in and got injured, and he had Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins, et cetera, throwing the ball to him. And he just couldn't get anything done. When your number 1 overall pick scores you 10.9 points in the fantasy championship, if you were even lucky enough to get there after he missed the middle part of the season because he didn't really have a great fill-in, I think that is firmly in bust territory for me. And finishing as RB or wide receiver 37 is just really, really bad for a number 1 overall pick.
Well, so if Britt is going to say that injuries can count here, then I might change my answer and go with Nick Chubb.
Oh,
because the injuries. But if injuries don't count, I think for the sake of this tiebreaker, and I will say this, because the one thing about injuries is that there is replacement value, especially if there's a direct handcuff. Like you look at Mark Andrews, and there's a debate to be had about like Mark Andrews versus TJ Hawkinson. Where were you better off? Mark Andrews played 10 games. TJ Hawkinson played 15. So you got more games out of TJ Hawkinson. But when Mark Andrews got hurt, you picked up Isaiah Likely. You were much better off. And in fantasy championship week, you had a tight end that scored 2 touchdowns versus TJ Hawkinson, where, unless you had the stones and the gall,
Johnny Munt,
Gary Haddow and Kevin Tompkins, the only 2 people in the world, that even were thinking about Johnny Munt. But there's an argument to be made there. So I think I'm going to go with a guy that to really truly be a bust and really hurt you, Austin Eckler didn't have there was no replacement value. Right, because Josh Kelly, the games he missed, Josh Kelly was dog water, right?
Terrible.
So awful. And Austin Eckler, you couldn't quite bench him. So like the game against the Raiders, you sat here and said, "I'll start him against the Raiders," and he had 9 yards rushing, right? So I think Austin Eckler at the end of the day has to get this one, and especially because you can't quite blame it on injury. I mean, my God, I'm looking at it now. Week 1, he had a great game, and after that, just brutal. So Austin Eckler's got to be the first round bust, man. Sellers, I feel you on that. My personal one was Bijan. I wasn't drafting a lot of Austin Eckler because Howard Bender scared the bejesus out of me with all the Austin Eckler talk. So I wasn't doing much of it, but I just looking around, I think it's got to be Eckler on this one.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what, Britt? You said what he scored. Jefferson scored how many points? 10 something, 10.9.
10.9.
But could have been worse. Could have been worse. Could have been 2.5 last year.
Right.
That Jefferson did when he got locked up with Jair Alexander.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is Jefferson the new Zeke Elliott? Just good all year, and then fantasy playoffs, he just disappears. Russell Wilson's always done that too.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't, to Britt's point, I will say it does hurt a lot more when you draft a guy at 1 overall. It puts you in a pretty big.
You
hole.
remember that?
Yeah, but I don't know. Eckler, man, just rough, man, rough. I hope he lands. I hope he goes to play with not Joe Lombardi, because that would be bad for Javonte Williams. I hope he finds his own Joe Lombardi out there. I was saying, here's my take. That's like just complete fantasy wishing, or not fantasy wishing, but real life wishing, would be for Derrick Henry and Austin Eckler to team up. It would be bad for fantasy, but in real life, to have the power back and then the third down back, you're not going to get a better combo.
Yeah, that's true.
So
but it does really stink for fantasy.
So Derrick Henry would be the Jordan Howard then, where you know what's happening if Derrick Henry's there.
Alfred Morris.
Oh my God. Jeremy
Hill. He'll be Jeremy Hill, and Austin Eckler will be Gio Bernard.
Is that before he got his legs cut off in Cincinnati?
That was before.
Yeah.
Gio Bernard, man.
That's what could have been,
I
honestly.
had so much Dynasty Gio Bernard because his rookie year, he was a hot commodity. I was like, this guy.
Jeremy Hill's like that gif of the witch underneath the sewer grate.
Right.
That's Jeremy Hill.
Yeah, Jeremy Hill, dude. Jeremy Hill, Alfred Morris, those guys that couldn't catch, but just all the goal line work, brutal fantasy. But yeah, I think so. Okay, so far we have fantasy MVP, Kyron Williams, fantasy rookie of the year, Sam Laporta, biggest first round bust, Austin Eckler. What do we got next, Kev? What's the next category?
Next up, breakout fantasy star of 2023.
Ooh.
It's a fun category because there's a lot of options. Coop, start us off.
I'll go with this one, and I will say the caveat here being fantasy star because I'm still not 100% sure if this guy is like really good or not. But he was really good in fantasy football, especially down the stretch, and that's Rachaad White, man. Like at the end of the day, you need to get the usage and you need to get the targets to put up the points, and Rachaad White just never gave up any part of that job all year long. And he struggled through the hard times. And then towards the end there were a lot of good times, man. So I think that if they don't go out and do anything, where does Rachaad White go in drafts? Because there's so few guys that are just the guy that plays every snap at running back, especially. Like, I don't know. I think that Rachaad White this year, and I didn't really have a ton of Rachaad White, unfortunately, but just watching from afar, I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty nice. And doing my snap count article is a big part of why I respect him, because going through and looking at some of these teams and looking at Jerome Ford versus Kareem Hunt or whatever the Bears are doing at running back, it's just nice to know as a fantasy gamer that, hey, you know what? Every single week I'm right in there. Rachaad White got all the important touches in all the phases of the game for the 16th time in a row. So start him again this week, So Rachaad White, very solid there. Kev, who did you go with?
I went with Nico Collins. I wrote off Nico Collins before this year, thinking that he was like the next Kenny Galladay, where like he's fine, but he wasn't quite up to like Galladay's like peak at all. But I thought he was just kind of like I'm here, I'll get 70, 80 targets. No, look, CJ Stroud, kingmaker. With Tank Dell and Nico Collins, and certainly Dalton Schultz as well. So you got to love, the upward trajectory of that Texas offense. And Nico Collins, is certainly going to be a massive part of that. And the fact that, he's been off the field, he's missed a couple games, he's left a couple games, but still 71 catches, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 100 targets. I mean, if he plays a full season, he's probably at close to 80, 1,200 and a couple more touchdowns. Like the dude would probably be a locked in top 10 wide receiver. But, certainly Tank Dell missing, certainly the back third of the year didn't help anything. But look, Nico Collins, I think, is firmly entrenched in like the top 24 wide receivers.
No doubt about it, dude.
Especially I think we were so out on Collins because we had seen what he had done the years prior and dealt with injury and things like that, mixed with the fact that we didn't know how CJ Stroud was going to look. We didn't know that Stroud was going to be that dude, but he was. And it's going to get better as the weapons around him kind of just gel and mesh, like the offensive line especially. As soon as they get more offensive line help, that offense is going to be completely dangerous. So I do like Nico Collins. However, I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs because Gibbs, obviously very talented, but he was splitting time with David Montgomery. And that had people very divided on what his actual workload was going to be. But he came out and did everything that we were thinking that he was going to. He showed that explosive playmaking ability. Yes, Montgomery did get hurt, but he was putting up points even before Montgomery got injured. He was being worked into this offense. And that dual threat ability of the receiving and the rushing work mixed with that really fast blazing speed to break away from tackles, absolutely huge. RB8 in PPR formats on the season, like as a rookie. I know that we've talked a lot about other rookies, but it's Gibbs for me.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. In thinking of the term star, I think Nico Collins and Gibbs both, they looked more like stars. They flashed more than Rashad White. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my vote and I'm going to give it to the chat here. So I see a lot of Pukas, a lot of Rices. Chat, let us know what you think. I think Nico Collins and Gibbs both equally deserving of this award. So chat, is it going to be Gibbs or is it going to be Nico Collins? And we'll officially award my vote to whatever the chat thinks on that. So let us know, Gibbs or Collins in the chat. Who do you think deserves this one? Seeing some Gibbs coming in already.
There we go.
While
Dave
we wait,
and Sellers, my boys.
While we wait on that, why don't we jump to the next one and then we'll officially allocate that once the totals. I mean, it looks like it's a runaway here. 3 votes already on Gibbs from Sellers, Angelos, Toronto Dave. So I think it's got to be Gibbs, Kev. Graham is a god. Gibbs.
Look, so that's fine. You know, you'll never get me to vote for a running back. So I mean,
it would be so off brand.
Now that he's trickled into the first round, he's dead to you, right, Kev?
He's like, I don't know about that. I mean, he could be my Tony Pollard. He could be my back.
Don't put that curse on him.
Well, Jerry Jones already put. Well, Brian Schottenheimer already put the curse on.
There's already a new Tony Pollard, Kev. You know who it is.
Jaylen Warren.
It's Jaylen Warren.
It's always been. Always has been.
Twitter needs, exactly. Always has been. Twitter always needs to have the backup running back with the good metrics behind that. There's good in space behind the, the clunky goal short yardage guy. Now I'm glad you guys have one, dude. Because
do you know how many back closed door meetings me and Jacob Sanderson have had?
You and Sanderson and Marcus Mosier probably, all offseason probably sitting there, with like the SpongeBob meme with the cup of coffee, just like, what are we gonna do? Tony Pollard's a starting running back now. We need somebody. And thank God Jaylen Warren showed up to save you guys.
It could have been Zach Charbonnet, but Jaylen Warren, just outpaced everybody.
In the winter meetings, Charbonnet's name was bounced around, right?
Yeah.
There was, I'm sure there was a lot of that. So congratulations. Roshan Johnson.
Yep. We got just a little bit of time. Let's talk biggest overall bust. It's Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
Unless you have somebody else to throw out there.
I mean, I'm going with Joe Burrow because where we were drafting Burrow, it just injury notwithstanding. On this one, I'm not even including the injury. Even before that happened, he was averaging 15.3 fantasy points per game from a quarterback who just got a record contract, who has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Make it make sense. I don't know why he was so bad. Whether it was the calf, whether it was something else nagging at him, the lack of reps at training camp, whatever it was, Burrow was just not it. And I think some people are going to be really considering whether or not he's an elite fantasy option going into next season. Quarterback scarcity was so bad this year with all the injuries and everything that happened. That's why he makes the bust list for me, because it wasn't like, well, just go out and get whoever else. At quarterback, a lot of them stunk and a lot of them were hurt. So even your replacement options weren't great for Burrow. And drafting a quarterback that early, you expected him to be your set and forget. And Burrow was not that.
Miles Sanders, though, for me personally, I just had him in so many leagues. I could also, an honorable mention that needs to be thrown out there is also Dameon Pierce.
I was thinking about him earlier.
So did I. And I actually threw in Alexander Madison too.
He's out there for sure. I see a Darren Waller in the chat. The thing with Waller that you have to give him credit for is that his quarterbacks were all over the place. And he did have some games. Like he had, 6 for 76, 8 for 86, 7 for 98 and a touchdown in the game before he got hurt. A bunch of games with 5, 6, 7, 8 targets. I mean, in fantasy championship week, he had 5 for 51, which outscores. 5 for 51 outscored Travis Kelce. Obviously, Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson were not available. That outscored George Kittle. Like, I don't know. Like, of the high-end tight ends that you picked in fantasy championship, who did better than Darren Waller? So I could defend Darren Waller to some degree. There's no defending Miles Sanders. There's no defending Dameon Pierce, man. That was just crazy that he just didn't even play. Like, he didn't play at all. One of the games he played 4 snaps when he was fully healthy. So, but I think it's got to be Miles Sanders. So that's the award here.
Yes. So that's what I get for capitulating, is that I have way too much Miles Sanders in my portfolio. It is what it is. Anyway, the last category, best late round pick, the caveat round 9 or later. And you can certainly throw in maybe one of the guys that we talked about before at the very beginning, but I didn't want to double up. Britt, who is your pick for best late round pick, round 9 or later?
Yeah, I am doubling up here. And as much as I love Raheem Mostert and what he did this season, for me, it does go back to that positional scarcity. And that's why my guy is the namesake of the Laporta Potty Romper Stompers, Sammy Laporta. I just think what he was able to do in this offense, the upside that he gave you, the scoring that he had throughout the fantasy championship was just, it was so unmatched and so good. He wasn't like a Travis Kelce who just vanished and left you for dead. Laporta actually showed up, actually helped you win a championship, and that is why he is my best late round pick.
Yeah. So I did some thinking on this one, and I kind of alluded to it at the top of the show that I was going back and forth between Kev, you picked Kyron Williams as the MVP, and Britt, you had Raheem Mostert as the MVP. And at the end of the day, when I look at a category of best late round pick, nobody was actually picking Kyron Williams, right? But Raheem Mostert was getting picked. He was the exact, to me, epitome of a late round pick. I picked him late in a lot of leagues. And when I go through my best ball teams and look at them, these are the guys, my teams that finished in the money. A lot of Raheem Mostert, a lot of Sam Laporta. But here's the thing. We already gave Sam Laporta award, gave him Rookie of the Year. So I'm going to go with this one where it's kind of like the, again, a little journalism here. The back door, let's make up a makeup award. He didn't get the MVP. He's not a rookie. He's 31 years old, but best late round pick for me, Raheem Mostert. So what do you think, Kev?
Same. Raheem Mostert. It makes me wonder why, I look at my best ball portfolio, easy for me to say, and I see Jeff Wilson sprinkled way too much into my portfolio. And don't get me wrong, Dolphin at every draft led me to a lot of Raheem Mostert, and a lot of the teams that I had. Thank you, Raheem Mostert, because it was pretty much him carrying a lot of my running back teams. I mean, I draft the RB, like breaking news, but Raheem Mostert was a massive part of that. So thank you, good sir. You absolutely deserve the best late round pick.
So do best ball, regular 12-team best ball drafts, do they go through week 18?
No. I think they are going to be paying out on Thursday on Underdog.
Okay. Because I was say it says live here still on these. Yeah, when I go through mine, I mean the ones that I won, like looking at this one, Raheem Mostert right there next to Miles Sanders, right? Tight end trio of Dalton Schultz, Dalton Kincaid, and Trey McBride. They on this team, 93, 85, and 95 points. Just perfectly balanced in every way. My sweet three babies.
Yeah, my Palm final had McBride, Laporta, and Kmet. That was pretty sick to have all year.
Yeah, I want to this was the Sellers team of all the best ball fantasy alarm teams we did, which was I was part of 19. This was the highest scoring of any of those teams, 2,176 points. Sellers had Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud as his quarterbacks. Pretty good. Saquon, DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Samaje Perine, Roshan Johnson, Zach Evans. But the way the weeks lined up for these guys, man, all three of Barkley, Swift, and James Cook for his team scored 160 plus points. So just the timing. Wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, touchdown factory, and then somehow Donovan Peoples-Jones scored 3.5 points for his team. And then tight end, Cole Kmet, Sam Laporta, Trey McBride.
Hey,
that team,
speaking of.
Sellers really put together a wagon with that team. And there's a lot of Sellers-esque players in here. No Gabe Davis, though. I'm very surprised by that. But
no, really?
I'm surprised. The Sellers, that's his baby. But yeah, good job, Sellers, man. That team, of all the teams, which, again, I was part of 19, so maybe there were a couple more, but 19 times 12, that's a lot of teams to have the number one overall scoring team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That would have done some damage in some tournaments, certainly.
No question.
100%.
I love it. Go Sellers.
Sellers, dude.
Yeah. I'm just talking basketball. I am ready to just go draft teams right now.
When does Underdog open? I know it's February, but
Underdog will have the big board tournament That will start after like the week after the Super Bowl.
Why can't they just do them now?
They could. They might.
They
That's
might.
always been the last couple of years where they've always done the big board tournament. And then like a couple weeks later, they do the big board with Superflex. And then that usually runs to April. That fills right before the NFL draft. They'll have a couple other tournaments too, but usually the first one has been the big board after the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, if you want to get in on that, Underdog Fantasy promo code ALARM, $100 deposit match. You throw in $100, they throw it right back at you for $100. You put in 50, they bring in 50. Any amount up to $100, they will match it 100%. Use promo code ALARM.
Get it going. Get it popping.
Love it.
Absolutely. We got Alarm Fantasy Football coming up at the top of the hour, right? Cool.
Yeah. I got to jump over. So I'll catch you. Everybody stay here on the channel. Howard Bender and I are going to go live and keep it rocking, keep it talking. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened this week, but also going to get in some DFS, I think, for week 18, because it is a fun slate, especially when you start hearing about who's going to play, who's going to not play.
Greg Dortch.
This is the second most fun slate of the year besides week 1, because it's just so much craziness.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Can't wait.
Let's go. All right. Let's catch you guys.
Yep.
Bye.
All right. We will get out of here in a second. Anything else you want to add, Britt, before we hop on out of here?
Just make sure to check out the matchup previews over on Fantasy Alarm, because the matchup previews are still going for all the DFS players and you sickos out there playing championships in week 18. So I'll have that out on Thursday. Britt's Blitz still on Friday at 2 p.m. And the waiver wire article dropped again for all you sickos still playing in week 18.
Yeah, I dropped Target Report bullet points. That's up on YouTube. It should be up there now, if not now, very soon, certainly. So for those week 18 sickos, hey, for the first time, I am playing a championship in week 18. I vowed never to play in a league that plays in week 18, and I didn't read the settings because for whatever reason, but I am still playing in week 18. So yeah, go. Hey, I got a 60-point lead, so that should be good, but we'll see. But I'm still playing, so hopefully championship on the line here.
Love it. Bring another one home for the family.
Exactly. I got to put something up there. Little trophy action, little Stanley Cup action. But stay tuned here on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube channel for Alarm Fantasy Football. Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper, getting you ready for week 18 for Britt Flinn. For Andrew Cooper, who is departed, but not that kind of departed. He is just on the other channel getting ready for Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm Kevin Tompkins. We will say toodles.